Tonight's guest has distinguished himself in every medium imaginable, all the while being outspoken and honest in his own views of truth in the media. His new movie is Path to War, and it debuts on HBO on May 18th. Please welcome a very talented man, Alec Baldwin. Alec.
I brought this out for you if you'd like. I don't dig that Lionel Barrymore and Son of Frankenstein thing you've got going with that sleeve. So
I broke the right one, so we'd have two left wingers on.
Hold on. There you go. Let me just help you out.
Now, first,
I thought you were holding back during the monologues. I thought I'd loosen you up.
Before we plow into the topic, I have to say that I was at Saturday Night Live for 6 years, and there's everybody's very nice to the hosts up front there, but there's a back channel who's got balls and who doesn't. And you and Hanks were always thought of as the best hosts we had there in our 6 years. So I must tell you, much admired there.
It's funny because I was going to say, and along a similar vein, not many people leave the show and get to do something that is as creative as when they were on the show. And I won't mention any names of other people and denigrate the work that they do, but I feel that when that show works and the material works, a lot of people leave that show and it's just never as good as that.
Yeah, it's a great score,
and you're one of the few people I know that has actually gone on to do something more interesting.
Do pictures with funny captions 10 years later.
No, but seriously, I mean, I am a huge admirer of yours.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
You're very thoughtful and very smart stuff you say. I mean, I just was saying, I think you should
do that. Thank you. Now, let me ask you about that.
Listening to you, I was exhausted backstage, but it's interesting.
Well, the truth in media is the topic, and I know it kind of dovetails with your film, which I believe is about our entry into Vietnam, right, for HBO?
It's about Johnson's escalation of the Vietnam War from '64 to '68, his one pure term that he had, yeah.
Now, I look back at the Vietnam War as sort of a continental divide in this culture and the coverage of war. Before that, it was always very Ernie Powell, out in the foxholes with the men of World War II, right. Always very pro. And then during Vietnam, we had, well, the William Westmoreland, Dan Rather, it seemed like the first time where truth in war reportage became more important than the cheerleading aspect.
It was a TV war, yeah.
Is that a good thing, Alec? What do you think? It seems like war is such a... We should be on our own team during war, shouldn't we?
Well, I think that, when, interestingly enough, Vietnam was a war where the TV exposure of the war, if it weren't for TV, who can say how much longer it would have gone on? I mean, there are people who were in office in the mid-1970s who they probably would have kept it going for their own personal purposes. Beyond 75, TV helped to end the Vietnam War. And social consciousness and social protest helped to end the Vietnam War, which was necessary in that case. I think what you see in this country right now in terms of the war and people's attitude toward war is Vietnam was something where the people who were calling the shots in the Pentagon and in the White House and so forth were people who had seen duty during World War II. And they had this hangover from World War II where they didn't stop Hitler in the 30s when a lot of people thought they should have, and they didn't go in and stop the Russians in the wake of World War II and when they thought they should have. So they thought, we've got to be tough with aggression right away. And they mistook Ho Chi Minh for Hitler. Now, Ho Chi Minh was the spiritual leader of millions of people, and there was nothing at stake for us economically. Ho Chi Minh wasn't Hitler. Hitler was a sociopath and a psychopath who seduced a bunch of people who were down and out economically and so forth. I don't want to get into some thumbnail sketch of that, but basically, now you come full circle to what we have now, and many people are concerned about the war and the impression of the war, but the Al-Qaeda and the Taliban and many political leaders, perhaps even Hussein and so forth, it's back to Hitler again. These people are not Ho Chi Minh, and they're not the spiritual leader of a lot of people. They are psychopaths that we do have to stop. So every time every time we get to a war, we have to check and see, do we have some hangover or resonance from the last time the country was at war? And I think a lot of people are, the United States militarily, they pull their punches as a result of since Vietnam, and this time perhaps we shouldn't. It doesn't change the fact that we should also have the inward-looking journey about what needs to change in this country, about the way we do business over there, about our, like, mother of all Joneses for petroleum and fuel and things like that. We have to stop consuming oil the way we do in this country and so forth. But I do think that it's not like Vietnam again, and therefore I think that the exposure in the media today, I think that the media gets that. I think it's not about fomenting.
So they're a bit on board about this.
I think that they're on board, and rightfully so.
Well, many of them live in New York City, as I believe you do,
right,
to some extent, and you can talk about freedom of the press all you want, and we should be able to tell where our boys are landing, and their publics need to know. But if you lived in New York on that day, I imagine a guy like you got a bit of a tempestuous nature. You must have been just pissed off, like, fuck these people, huh?
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, you're torn between wanting
that's exactly
the truth.
What I said. I said, fuck these people. Yeah. That was precisely what I said.
Well, I have an intriguing dichotomy, because sometimes when I see you speak, I think this guy's got to be about as, well, maybe it was just viewed through the Clinton lens, because I know you're a fan of his, but I think he must be the most liberal guy in the world. And yet, when your space is invaded by another guy, you rewired his jaw. I kind of dug that. I mean, was that a great cathartic moment? Did that feel great? I often think...
No.
No? To unload on the guy did not feel good?
Well, I was just in this zone, I mean, the guy was stalking my family, so, I mean, I
know, but doesn't
it all
that...
happens and,
that gives you carte blanche to just take him out, doesn't it?
It all just kind of went by. I mean, he tried to hit me with a camera, so it was a self-defense thing, but I don't... I'm not Mike Tyson, I don't get a sexual satisfaction out of decking somebody,
No?
No.
Well, I'm just thinking your reaction there should be our reaction here. We're going to all try to figure this out, but all I know is the two biggest buildings in that town were hit in the morning of, and I hear everybody trying to figure it out, and I should study and read up on Islam and know what makes them tick. And I go, what are you fucking kidding me? Give me a break here. I'm just trying, I'm pissed off right now. And I think the press should be on board, and like you said, I do believe they're on board to some extent.
As soon as that happened, and even in the wake of that, I say to myself, not just as a New Yorker, but as an American, I think, if you told me that you could put me in a plane, and this is a big fantasy, obviously, and it's all, silly, but if you told me you could put me in a plane and I was going to fly, and you'd found bin Laden, and I was going to go do the bombing mission, and there was a 50% chance I was going to be killed, and blah, 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 I'd go. I want to go kill bin Laden, and I want to go kill all the people responsible for this. And I know I feel that way, truly. At the same time, I do feel that there are things that have to change here at home. One thing that has to change is this pain that you're in. I can't believe what's happened. Are you all right?
Honest to God, I've been taking Percodans, but I thought I don't want to go on TV with Alec Baldwin on Percodan, because
I took your Percodans before I came. I was so nervous to be on the show with you. I thought this guy's going to rhetorically bitch slap me across this room. I ate a whole bowl full of Percodans before I came out here. But anyway.
Well, you've referenced it twice. What has to change in this country?
The dependence on fossil fuels and oil. Our relationship to that part of the world, as everybody knows, is all based on oil. And, we wouldn't be concerned. I was mentioning to somebody on your staff, there's a reference in Harper's Index, in Harper's Magazine this month, that we import, if these figures are accurate, which they have footnoted, that $19 billion worth of oil is imported to this country from that part of the world, and we spend an additional $36 billion on defense spending in that part of the world to help bring that $19 billion.
So we're double dipping almost.
Exactly. We're spending, nearly, $55 billion a year. There's a lot of hidden costs in our strategy there, in our relationship there, and now we're spending American lives there, and it's necessary, but at the same time, it's equally necessary for Americans to change the way they consume energy, I think.
Now, what about, would one facet of that change be drilling Alaska?
No.
No, you wouldn't drill it at all?
I think that if the people tell me who are dialed into the sustainable energy frontier that the reason we don't have fuel cells in cars is you can't order enough of them to make it economically feasible, that order has to come from Detroit or from some kind of big ticket buyer, like the government. So the government should turn around and the government should say, well, we'll have a program where we're going to order literally hundreds of thousands of vehicles with fuel cells to lower the cost of fuel cell technology. Let the government lay out the seed money to trigger the R&D on bringing down the cost of fuel cells so that we can then eventually have commercial fuel cells used in vehicles for the general public.
Okay, say that takes place. Is the next logical step, if we disengage ourselves in a fuel dependency way from that crazy bastard section of the world, would you just turn your back on it? Would you just
No.
No?
No, but our relationship with them would change, and we would allow them. You know what's going to happen is we're going to allow those people in the world. We're going to allow, and not just the United States, but other countries as well, are going to allow certain parts of the world to develop their indigenous resources for their own benefit as well. I mean, let's face it, these are parts of the world where we go in there, we make friends with a certain stratum of society there. We grease them up big time and we become their friends, and we tell them to sell us all the good goods that they've got in the closet to us for our needs, and very little goes to help the people of those countries.
So that even breaks up the fractionalization of the culture. The haves have more, and the disenfranchised in those countries have even less, right?
Right.
It's who we opt to put the sword on their shoulder almost over there.
Now, let them have their own determinism, is what I'm saying.
You seem to be so well versed on this stuff and so involved. In Hollywood, to me, I don't know. I watch you on with James, what's his name, Lipton, and I think, you know, this is nice that he's being faded, but there must be a part of Baldwin. You seem like pretty astute. You're sitting there thinking this is such a jerk-off occupation. It was like when you went to play, you know, you left that franchise. Everybody's looking for a franchise. You split the franchise to do Streetcar. I remember being intrigued by that, thinking, fuck, who wants to take that on? I always thought Brando thought acting seemed to be an emasculative exercise, and that's what he liked, or that's why he was so good at it. He could distance himself. Do you want to be a politician someday? Do you find acting is not going to fill you up the rest of your life?
Well, you know, I don't know if I'd want to go into politics per se in terms of like a candidacy-related thing. You can go and get involved in an issue and be behind the scenes, or I mean, sometimes I have friends who work in relief work who are
and your brother
very
Billy's
gratified
sharp
by
in that area too.
Billy is very involved. But what I've learned about my business right now is, you know, people have always wanted performers. They've always wanted to look up to people in film and television, and I've kind of discovered this now, the politics of this trend, and that is they always wanted to look up to them because that they were very physically attractive. They were very talented. They could do something that the audience couldn't do. A performer was either incredibly charismatic innately, or they had a talent as a performer, that they possessed something that you don't have. Well, now talent seems to have fallen away in its relevance.
It's almost need to be
But
seen.
the audience now, they still demand that you be able to do something that they can't do. And in the modern world, it's stay thin and stay fit, I've learned. The biggest stars are the fittest, leanest, most sharply defined stars.
I've got to do the news, Alec, and I was wondering if you could do me one favor before I go. No, you stay there. Just give me a coffee as for closers as I split over here. My favorite.
Go.
Thank you. Alec Baldwin, folks. Sorry, my time is up.